Hey everybody, welcome back to Slow Your Roll. I'm Cody,
I'm Alex.
and today we're going to hit you with the essentials list for everything you need for a good session zero.
That's right, and for a good session zero, first and foremost, I think everybody needs to at least know each other. Most of the time you're going to play D&D with people that you know or are in your life generally, so you might not even need this step. But if it's an online meet, maybe it could be a good idea to do the thing where you're sitting in the classroom and you say one or two things about everybody just to get to know each other, you know? It doesn't have to be that corny, but say hi, I'm Alex and I like to do this. And also try to discuss what you want out of the game. In general, if you're a role player, try to say that. If you're someone who really wants combat, say that. Or if you don't really know what you want just yet, say that too. Just be honest.
And the second thing on our list is simply understanding the game. Session zero is a really good time to give an actual brief overview of the game's settings and mechanics, things like that. Especially, again, if you're playing with people you're not familiar with. Now's a good time to explain any unique house rule, and this is really important because a lot of times you might have played with these house rules for so long that you forget that they're not the normal rules. So check yourself and your house rules that you're used to. Make sure you hit the group with that so they know what to expect. This is also a great time to clarify the exact type of campaign or game you're going to be running. Is it just an adventure game where it's like high fantasy, you go out and do your thing? Is it going to be more mystery-esque or maybe even horror, roleplay heavy, all that stuff? This is a good time to cover it.
After you know what you're getting into for the campaign, know about your character. This is where you're going to start making your characters, maybe even help other people if they don't know how to make a character. Discuss the character backstories, their motivations, and if you have a really cool DM, how they're going to integrate that into the campaign. And when you're making your backstories, try to make sure that all of them mesh together in a way. You don't want someone to be kind of an outlier. Like, a good example might be Baldur's Gate 3. If your backstory was like the dark urge and you just happen to kill things every now and then whenever you get angry, it might be kind of hard to fit that into certain campaigns. So just be careful with what you're trying to do, because you're trying to do it with everybody.
The fourth thing on our list is going to be handling group dynamics and playstyle in general. Now would be a good time to kind of establish the group norms as far as the way that players are going to respect one another, the punctuality, just like, is it okay to be 5 minutes late? Is it going to be relaxed enough that some people are coming from work and they're 30 minutes late and you just make the game work? And even now is a good time to touch on attendance. Are you still going to play if you're missing a player or even two players? This is also a good time to officially get out the playstyle preferences, get them out in the open. This kind of goes back to our first point of getting to know the group. This is a good time to hit this one. So is this specifically, you want a combat heavy game? Or do you want a role play game? What kind of character do you want to play with those things? And of course, this is a tabletop role playing game we're talking about. So there's going to be things that come up that are just disputes, rule issues, arguments between players or whatever. Now's a good time to determine exactly how those are going to be handled. Do you want to take 5 minutes to actually look up the rule for it? Or do you want to just maybe do some sort of check and see how it goes from there?
This next point might not be necessary for most people, especially if you all already know each other. But this is something that you should at least touch on, and that's kind of how comfortable things are when you approach certain topics. Or if there's certain topics you don't want to approach at all, just make sure that you put that out there. Some people, I'm sorry to say, have had some bad things happen to them, and they don't want to relive that stuff. So if they say, hey, I don't like this, that, or the other, just don't do it. And this is the time to say that, so that way everyone can have fun all at the same time. And here's the thing, not everybody wants to talk about that thing they don't want to talk about. So if it does happen to come up at the table, kind of make an avenue easy enough for them to talk about it. Or if you didn't want to say, hey, what's everybody's traumas in the middle of session zero, maybe you could have like a little note card that says, no to this sensitive topic, no to this sensitive topic, no to this sensitive topic. It'll be pretty easy to pass that out and just see the opinions of what everyone thinks.
And for the sixth thing on our list, we have scheduling and session logistics. At some point, you should definitely cover exactly when you're going to have some sort of regular schedule for your sessions. Is it going to be once a week, bi-weekly, even once a month? Just something that everyone can agree on to make sure that the game doesn't break down before it starts. And since you're already talking about the timing of things, you might as well also agree on session length and break times. Are you going to run 4-hour sessions with one break in the middle for 10 or 15 minutes or whatever? I feel like that's kind of a good standard. And on these breaks, what is everyone going to eat? Now's a good time to also discuss food and drink arrangements. If it's hosted at your house, are other people bringing the food? Do you want to be a really outstanding host and bring your own food and drink and just have the players show up bringing themselves? Whatever happens, now's a good time to cover that.
And another thing that can be really important that a lot of people really forget is, how are we all talking about D&D once we're not at the D&D table? It might be good to have a group chat or a Discord that everybody's a part of. And if you all know each other in person, it can be really hard to fall in this trap because, why would you need a Discord to let everyone know what's going on when you really only get in contact with like 3 out of the 5 people at your table? Only 3 out of 5 people are getting updates for the campaign, and that's really not cool. So try to make sure everyone's on the same page no matter what.
And some people don't view it this way, but the truth is the game master is just another player too. They're just doing different stuff with different responsibilities. So that brings us to point 8, the game master's expectations. This would be a good time to cover exactly what the GM's approach to handling storytelling and rules, things like that, as well as how the GM will actually handle a character death or something traumatic or some sort of big failure at the table. Some players that have never played may have only watched the big live plays that are out there like Critical Role or Dimension 20, and oftentimes if a character dies in those games, that player will actually leave the table for dramatic effect. And if the players are expecting that to be the case, maybe let them know it doesn't have to be that way. If a character death happens at the table, they could sit right there and just keep at least listening to the game and maybe even roll up a character for the next session, hopefully right then and there. This might also be a good time to cover the GM's approach in a lot of other ways, like how strictly they run the rules of the game. Is it possible that every time a person uses a rope for some interesting or creative solution, are they going to get rope burn if something goes wrong? You know, how strict or how loose is the game going to be run by this specific GM? Lastly, this would be a good time for the GM to communicate exactly maybe the policy or how they handle player feedback and suggestions. How much leeway do the players have crafting the world or even just giving suggestions with NPCs, anything like that?
And that's what you can expect out of your game master, but what about the players? What are the responsibilities for the players? And that's going to be certain things that you could do extra just to make sure that the game runs smoothly. Of course, you're going to need to know the game that you're playing and your character, but maybe you could take notes to make the session just a little bit easier for everyone. Or there's a lot of small tasks that don't necessarily have to be relegated to just the game master. If you were going to start taking initiative whenever combat starts, I'm sure that the GM would really appreciate it. And I might even put this under a player responsibility as well. It's a team game. We're all trying to have fun here and make sure that everyone's working together. Not only should your characters mesh, but so should you guys at the table.
So we are on to our 10th point now, and there's one left after this, which is maybe the most important one, so make sure you stick around for that one. But number 10, we're looking at setting the scene. You may not always have time to get to this, but if you're running like a 4-hour session 0 and you're able to cover points 1 through 9 in the first 2 hours, now might be an awesome time to hit point 10 and just briefly introduce the starting scenario of the campaign. This could actually be the time where the players meet up in some funny or interesting or chaotic way. And you actually get a little bit of gameplay this way. This is a really good way to ensure that your players are maybe even left on a cliffhanger so they're even more excited to come into the next session when everyone's ready. One more thing this does is it does allow the players to get a taste right then and there of what the game is really going to be like. And this might prompt them to ask more questions or, need clarification on details or whatever. And it's kind of good to just start as early as you can to get those things out of the way as well.
Absolutely. That sounds pretty fun. And if everyone is actually super new to the game this could just be the time to do a practice combat encounter to see if it's cool. And then last but not least, I've probably said this a few times just in this video, but it's a team game and we're all trying to work together. So there should be some sort of feedback just to make sure that everyone's still having fun and on the same page. If there's not really an avenue to go about that, then how do you know if the game's succeeding? You don't necessarily win at D&D unless everyone's there to have fun. So, are you winning, son?
Nice.
Thank you.
And just to add one thing to that point real quick, it is incredibly important if you have a GM that's trying really hard. It is insanely important and helpful if a player finds the best way that they can just give feedback to the GM. But anyway, that's the last of the points. Again, that one being very close to my heart, which is why I said it was very important to stick around. But yeah, that's the last of the points we have for you. If you guys liked this video, please do give us some sort of feedback, like, comment, subscribe, whatever it takes. We'll take it all. And we do have some merch in the description below as well. But otherwise, we will see you guys later.
Bye, everybody.